Welcome to another episode of LWJ Podcast. Today in this podcast, we have here with us in our studio, Dr. Elaine Perez, a lady who not only is currently an entrepreneur, but who started her career as an educator with a passion, a calling, inspiring the future of this country, the genius of our democracy, our children. But this podcast is dedicated to all of you who are sitting there in your current position, your current career, dedicating your time and fearful of taking the next step to start a new journey. Feeling that you want to do something different, but afraid of leaving a sure salary and starting an entrepreneurship with an unstable and an unknown. This lady today will bring to us the knowledge of everything she took, everything she learned, everything she did, and how the journey for her went from struggling to positive, how she went from the chalkboard to diamonds. And so today in this studio, we're very honored to have with us Dr. Elaine Perez, who will take us on her journey and her legacy.
Hey, Jeffrey. Thank you so much. And I miss hearing doctor. I don't hear it enough anymore. But thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. Elaine, tell us a little bit about your journey. Let's talk about your doctor, the doctor title that you just say you don't hear enough about, right?
So I did start my career as a music teacher. I kind of fell into teaching accidentally. I wanted a real job. You know, I worked in my family business right out of college. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I knew that I didn't want to do it with my family. At the time, you know, when you're young, you want to come and change everything that they've done that has worked because they're older and they're antiquated, and, you know, that wasn't going to work. So I told my family, listen, I want a real job. Like, this is not a real job. I get here whenever I want. I leave whenever I want. You send me to do errands. Like, I want something purposeful. I want a real job. And through a client of theirs, they got me a job in an advertising agency. And I was the secretary to the owner. And I got to sit behind a computer screen from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. making a steady salary. I'll never forget, $401.75 a week. And I got to get a car, and I leased my dream car, and I did all these great things. And I lasted 3 months. I'm like, this is definitely not for me. And I applied for my master's degree in education. And I got a job in a low-performing turnaround school down in Florida City. And I loved it. But I realized really quickly that teaching music and what I was doing there wasn't purposeful. Like, I wanted to do more for kids. I wanted to help those kids, you know, get out of that poverty, how to break that cycle. And every Friday I would go home crying. It was really miserable. But through that experience, I got my master's, I went into the classroom, and then I got to do all the amazing things for 15 years that I did in education, all the way to becoming an executive director. You know, trial and tribulation and turmoil, and it's really hard sometimes when you want to be helpful and when you're good at something to move forward. You know, people kind of want to keep you and hold you and not allow you to promote, etc. So, you know, through that experience, I learned that all of the things that I did to help those kids or to help that principal or to help, I could have done for myself. All of that struggle that I went through to get to where I wanted to be in education, I did it all, I feel honestly like fulfilled in that part of my career. I realized that I was doing it for other people's children as my children didn't have their mom for the first day of school because I was opening a school. So when my son got to 5th grade, I had like a midlife crisis. I said, oh my goodness, you know, he's exiting elementary. I haven't really been present, although I was always the mom that gave the money for the snacks and that made sure the class had what it needed. And I went to read the book during Read America Week or whatever. I didn't feel like I was present enough. And that's when it all changed for me.
You know, it's a challenge that as educators, we always confront and reflect on each and every day, because you are right. The first day of school, we have to open our own school. When I was a principal, I experienced that as well. We cannot say, I'm not going to be there on the first day of school and you're the principal, and yet your child is starting school and you missed that picture, you missed that moment. So it's something that not only you went through, but so many educators confront on a yearly basis when they open school, and so many things that they do miss. Let's go back to your education experience. So you were in a turnaround school, a struggling school, Tell us a little bit about the challenges you confronted, the emotions, the feelings, the hardships that so many people are confronting to take that school from low performing to high performing.
So I think there was a lot of accountability, right? That was placed on me first as a special area teacher, right? A music teacher. Testing was coming, and 2-3 months before, here's your reading passages. You have to teach these kids reading comprehension skills. I'm not a reading teacher, right? I'm a music teacher. Like, how do I teach this, right? Which is really what prompted me to continue my journey and become a reading specialist, etc. But all of that pressure, right, that's placed on our teachers constantly. And there's only so much we can do in 8 hours a day and not being able to control the outside environment. And as much as we try, at the end of the week, when we don't meet our goals and we reflect and we think back, how can we make this better? Those emotions still get to you, right? Because I do think that most people, really, really try. And at the end of the week, when the kids didn't understand or they didn't meet their test scores or whatever it may be, yeah, okay, we go back and reflect. We change our practice, but it does impact us, I think, as educators.
I definitely think that I tell my staff all the time, I feel everyone wakes up in the morning with the desire to succeed.
Absolutely.
I don't think anyone wakes up in the morning with the desire to fail. And when you are reflecting either about your staff or as a staff member, we tend to see what's not there versus what is. And sometimes not understanding that it may be that extra strategy or that strategic win that we are aiming to achieve that needs to be designed a little bit differently, right? So you were a teacher, you went back to school to become an administrator. Tell us about that journey.
So I left that school, the first school. I had my first son there, went on maternity leave, and my husband said, listen, you don't have to go back. I got pregnant right away with my second son. So I was going to be on maternity leave again. And we got a new principal. And she said, listen, I know you're going to go on maternity leave again. And I know you're not happy here. So I am happy to transfer you somewhere. I still wasn't within the period where I could leave on my own, but they could exit me. And I ended up, I was in the classroom at that point. And I ended up back into a music position at another school. Where I was in a music position for 5 years. But in those 5 years, I got to do so much more. I got to do interventions. I finished my master's. I started my doctorate. And that music position actually gave me the space to be able to learn, to be able to help other teachers, to be able to impact other students, because my schedule was so open. I had a full day of planning because of the way that it would fall. Wednesdays, I would plan all day. I never sat planning anything, right? I would go to other classrooms. I would want to learn. I would help the administrators. Whatever extra they wanted me to do, I always wanted to do because I hoard information. Like I love to learn. I still learn. I still go to school. So during that time, I really figured out that what I wanted to do was impact more. And I always thought, I don't think this anymore, but I always thought that the higher you would go in position, the more students you would impact. And I learned at the very end, as I reflected throughout my 15 years doing that work, that that's not necessarily the case, and that you really impact those 20 kids, or if you're in the higher grades, those 180 kids that are in your classroom every day.
I'm so glad you highlighted that, because sometimes a lot of us, when we're sitting in the classroom as a teacher, and all of our teachers that may be watching our podcast, we feel the higher I go, the greater reach I have. And those of us that have had the opportunity already to understand that is not the case, because we've gone up in position and understand that the higher you go, the more politics that interfere with you even having a reach at all. And so tell us a little bit about that. You got into the position, you became a person at the district impacting reading. You went into the transformation area. You became an administrator at a school site. And then you first realized, I'm not reaching. How did that battle resolve for you?
So I really realized it at the district. Um, when I started the district position, I was so excited. You know, we were going to have, I was going to have access, I was going to support ESOL teachers and their administrators. And I was going to come into, 13 schools. Every week I'd be able to touch 13 schools and I'd be able to empower teachers and model for them. And then I quickly realized that there was nothing I could do to hold these teachers accountable. I could come in and model until I was blue in the face. And if I walked away and they didn't want to do it, it was okay. And that is when I realized there's no impact here. The only impact is that one little lesson that I taught those kids that they were so happy to learn from, because of course, when you're modeling for teachers, you're picking the ones that need the modeling most. So the kids were always excited to participate. The kids are never the problem. The kids were always excited to participate. The kids probably walked out with some type of knowledge from that lesson. But then as much as I would coach, as much as I would come back and give you feedback as a teacher and say, hey, you did great. This was great, but this was not great. They turn around and be like, oh, I don't want to do it. Okay. And there was really nothing I could do.
No accountability.
No accountability. And because everything was suggested, in quotes. So I realized that, I would continue to model, I would do my job, but I did a lot more work around data analysis. Where are we seeing the issues? Where are these areas of growth? And what can we do to make it better? How can we impact curriculum?
Was it that lack of accountability that made you get inspired to go to become an administrator?
Yes. When I left the district, I went to a charter school as a assistant principal, and then I became a principal. And to me, that was my favorite position. It was hard. I also cried, maybe not once a week like before, but once a month. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed working late, getting there early, setting up the kids for extra activities, for extracurriculars, sports, other things that are not just academic, that are really, really important to the growth of kids, especially in a middle school, right? When they're starting to explore.
I think there's 3 positions in a school district that are the most impactful and I believe the most memorable. And actually the ones that we enjoy the most: the teacher, the principal, and the superintendent. Those are the 3 positions in a school district that really have the direct impact through their decisions to make a change. You have the ability to really manipulate the outcomes through the strategy you develop with your team, and you're really in control to a point, because there's never full control of what takes place. So I can understand why you said that was your favorite position. So you're a principal, you're in the best position that you've had, you're enjoying it, and then all of a sudden you go from the chalkboard to real estate. You took a leap of faith of leaving the salaried based position that you would get paid every 2 weeks, and you would go into the unknown, and everything would be determined by the commission you would make, the sale you would make. And you went from a 6-digit salary to a potential of a lot more, but also a potential of a lot less. And so which moment did that happen in the career? Because I know you went from a principal to executive director of a charter network.
Yep.
And what convinced you to say, this is it, I'm starting?
So as an executive director, I was traveling. I had several schools and I was out of the house 2 days a week. And I had never done that before. Neither my husband or I have had to travel for work. I mean, my husband very little and me none at all. So I would miss my kids' soccer practice. I would miss sometimes a game or whatever was happening or an event, or I would have to move my schedule and then go on days that, didn't work. And that summer, right before my oldest was going to start 5th grade, I said to my husband, hey, I was already an agent and I was doing real estate work for family and friends. And it would be like our extra little travel money or whatever we wanted to use it for, to do something at the house. And I said to him, hey, do you think, I'll never forget, we were driving to a soccer game. And I said to him, hey, do you think my real estate could actually supplant my salary? And he said, yeah, I mean, if you plan for it, I don't see why not. And I said, well, I resigned. And he said, what do you mean? And I said, I resigned. August 15th is my last day. And what are you going to do? I said, I have no idea. But I know that I have to bring in a certain amount of money to the household every month because we do live on both salaries. I couldn't just not work and my husband take over. And we had just a couple years before bought a house with a higher mortgage. We had, upgraded. And I don't know, I think he panicked for a moment. And
I'm sure.
I think he panicked for a second there. And I said, I'm going to pull out that little 401k from the district that I have. And it was not much. It was $48,000. And I said, this will fund me for X amount of months until I figure it out. And honestly, the only regret that I have is not doing it sooner. I should have taken that step sooner. I wouldn't be who I was when I left. I think the education journey is what made me who I am today.
Well, it empowered you with a lot of skill set, right? Because you learned from being a teacher how to educate others. You learn from being an administrator how to lead others, as well as organize a business mindset. Because as a principal, you are the CEO of your school. Yes. You're responsible for the marketing, for the financial practices, for the monitoring, the budgets, the performance of employees. So many things that help you to prepare for the transition to entrepreneurship. The part that I want to really highlight for our listeners, because I think it's something that a lot of people are sitting with in their mind and don't have the strength sometimes, the courage, or the strategy to say, this is it. I'm doing this. I'm going to make the decision. I'm going forward. You wrote the resignation. You hadn't even spoken to your husband. What did you think in that moment when you pressed send and it went out?
So I think if I had to do it again, maybe I would have talked to him first. I am driven by impulses. And sometimes that's really a terrible thing when you're an entrepreneur. But I felt like if I wouldn't have clicked send at that moment and I would have rethought it, I wouldn't have done it. And that's why I clicked send. I mean, I thought in the back of my head, they're not going to let me go, right? They're not going to want to let me go. So if I want to take it back, I can, kind of thing, And I did stay a little longer than I said. And but that I was confident that if I didn't want to leave, I didn't have to. But I did want to go. I did want to go be a mom. I promised them time and time again, listen, I'm not going to another education. I'm not doing this anymore. Like, I am leaving education altogether. I'm being honest. I'm not lying.
So the entrepreneurship experience for a lot of our moms that are listening out there is possible for a woman with children. And not only is it possible, it actually, from what I'm hearing from you, can become a vehicle and a pathway to be a better mom because you can be more present. And so you, from one day to the next, went from a salary to no salary, living on the 401k that you had taken out from the district. And you had a timeline because the clock was ticking. You had a certain amount of money and you had a minimum amount that you needed to bring every month. So what was step one? You got your real estate license. You already had it or you were practicing it?
I already had it.
But it was a side hustle versus the only way to bring your food to your table. What did you do first?
So I just want to highlight that this was August 2019 when all of this occurred.
Right before COVID.
Right before COVID.
Wow.
And I know I had about 6 months to bring in my first commission and have other deals. See, in real estate.
Which was exactly right before COVID.
Right
6
before
months,
COVID.
without you knowing it.
Without me knowing it. And in real estate, everything takes minimum 90 days. I meet you today and maybe you're pre-approved and we start to look. And by the time we close, it's been 3 or 4 months. So it's not like I can work today and get paid in 2 weeks or get paid next month. Sometimes it takes 4 months. Sometimes it takes longer. So I started to network. Let people know, hey, I'm doing this full time. I'm a broker. I spoke to my broker at the time, tried to build a team. He said, listen, you need to be overflowing with work to build a team. I said, great, thanks so much. I'm out of here. And I opened the brokerage.
What's the name of your brokerage?
The Elaine Group.
The Elaine Group.
So I opened the brokerage and I started to network. I've had some angels in my path that have really empowered me with knowledge and with support. Because as a broker, you're on your own. You have the board and the board supports a lot, but you don't have a broker. And I feel like the struggle as a broker on my own is that I don't have that collaboration that I'm used to from education. which has been, the struggle for
the
me.
thought partnership
That
of
thought
others.
partnership.
Benefiting from other people's experiences. And, that's an important thing for our listeners to hear, because sometimes we feel we have to do it on our own. And sometimes those of us that have that thought partnership and that collaboration think this is too much. And yet we're hearing from her how much that was important in the moment that she needed it the most, and how much she missed it from not having it. Think about that moment. So you started it, you called it the Elaine Group, you incorporated, you decided, I'm not going to be working for someone else, I'm going to go do it for myself. You had no team, no office, nowhere to start. How much did it take to have that initial investment? And what were the first 3 steps you had to take to make sure that you would be positioned for today?
So the good thing is the investment was very little. Incorporating, and that's it. I incorporated, and I opened on some biz, and I didn't need anything.
That's awesome, because a lot of our listeners think it takes a lot of money to open a business. And if I don't have a lot of money, which business can I open? It seems like the one that you opened is good for those individuals that may not have a lot of money.
Service-related businesses are the best. You're yes, it's my time, and I'm giving you my time, and my time is expensive, but I don't need to get paid until I get it up and running, right? So it's, yes, my time is expensive, but it doesn't take out of pocket to do so, right? So I incorporated and I started reaching out to people. I did create a website, right? So I created a website about 2 months in. I created a website and I branded, because I think it's important. When I receive an email from someone that's a broker and their email is at gmail.com, like, to me, I don't like that. So I branded, I did my email, I did all of those funny
I call it,
things.
you have to fake it till you make it, and you have to look Fortune 500 even though you're not, because if you start how you want to end, you always build what you want.
And that start how you want to end is that we learn in education, like plan with the end in mind.
Backward design.
I did use that a lot, right? I used that as I started. I set up my goals for the year, and I said I want to close 12 transactions. I don't care what they are. There could be a rental for $1,000, or they can be multi-million-dollar for $50,000. I don't care what it is, but I'm closing 12 transactions.
But that goal-oriented mindset in an entrepreneur is very important. And that's something we did learn in education as leaders. We always had to set our goal at the beginning of the year. How many students are going to make proficiency? How many are going to... And that skill set you were able to transfer to your entrepreneurship. And without a goal, you can be victimized by the freelance of you being in charge.
Yes.
And at the end, you may not have the outcomes that you wanted.
Yes. So goals. So 12 transactions. Well, I did it, right? We did 16 transactions that year, and I hired an assistant. So it was a great year, an amazing year. I was overworked. I was overwhelmed. And I didn't want to do it alone. So I hired an assistant who is still with me today, and she's phenomenal. And on her path to greatness as well. I call her the clone, right? She's able to do everything I do, but unlicensed. So there's things she can't do. But she's amazing. And I did that all in the first year. I'm able to pay a full-time salary for her. And she started in July. So it took me, half a year to be able to pick up, and save to be able to hire somebody. And COVID came during that time.
And then what?
And then the market went crazy, right? When everybody was panicking, including me, I'm like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? 3 kids at home all day. How am I supposed to work? They're hungry every 5 minutes. Every hour they had a break for 20 minutes.
And you got your dream, right? You wanted to be a mom. Now you were a mom 24/7, right?
Yes. And, while it was happening, I would cry. I would cry every 2 weeks. I'd have a meltdown. Like, how can I do this? My husband was still working. He did work from home a little bit, but then he would, he went back to work pretty much right away. And I'm like, how can I do this alone? Like, what would I be doing if I had to teach a class and my kids are home? But now I think back, and even right when they went back to school, I think back and I'm like, wow, like I got to do that. I got to experience my kids 24 hours a day. And although I wanted to cut my veins while it was happening, it was so impactful for me as a mom. Maybe it wasn't for them, but it was for me. You were
able to catch up on the time lost, right? It was like a moment that the universe gave you to be able to plan your business, but also be there and catch up on so many different things, right? So COVID hit. How did it impact your real estate?
So at first people panicked. And the clients that I did have looking are like, oh, we're going to wait to see what happens. Which is a terrible, that's people default to, I'm going to wait. And really it's terrible. It's terrible to wait. If you're ready, you go. But they soon realized as the people started bidding, homes became more important to people. People started upgrading, wanted bigger spaces because now they're stuck at home. They don't know how long they're going to be stuck at home with their kids. And the market went nuts. And
in a good way or a bad way?
In a good way.
Wow. Tell us about that.
In a good way. I mean, depends who you ask. Mm-hmm. In a good way, prices increased. Influx from other states and other places to Miami with lots of cash and extra money, right? They're selling their properties in New York for 3-4 times more than they are here. And then they would come and pay whatever here. Wow. But they needed a home. And people were paying $50,000, sometimes $100,000 above appraisal value for a property.
So where COVID impacted businesses in a negative way, depending on the type of business, you're saying that for your particular brokerage and maybe for real estate in general, it was actually a positive impact.
It was a positive impact. Interest rates went to all-time lows. I even refinanced during that time. My interest rate is 2.25. Unheard of. We will never, I really think we'll never see those interest rates again. And it really stimulated the real estate by doing that, because now all of a sudden somebody who could only afford or qualify for $400,000 with a regular 5% is qualifying for $700,000 or $800,000 with this 2%.
They could buy a larger property, and also the market of larger properties was being able to be accessible to those that may not have had the revenues to do so.
Exactly.
If you were to talk to our listeners about real estate, and more importantly, you have a lot of expertise. You've been in this business now for a while and a successful entrepreneur in the real estate with your own brokerage. What would be the advice you would give to our listeners about buying their first home? So we have a lot of people that right now are saving to buy their first home. They are struggling because every door they touch to open and they go through the property tour, they can't afford. They can't qualify. What would you give them as the first 3 things they should do to get to that dream?
So step 1 is saving, right? You need to have a little money. There's so many programs out there to help you buy your first home. Down payment assistance programs. Now with our current interest rates, there's mortgage lenders giving, credits to be able to, sellers are now giving money back to be able to do interest buy downs so that the first year your payment is more affordable. Sometimes even your first 2 years. So saving and getting pre-qualified, people are afraid of the pre-qualification process, and I'm not sure why. They do pull your credit, but they don't even impact your credit score anymore. There's soft pulls now that don't show up as hard inquiries on your credit. To me, getting pre-qualified is like your plan, right? Your steps to purchasing. Where do you stand today? Are you ready today? No. But if you're not ready, how do I get there? And we put you on a path to get there. Okay, you need this much, or your credit needs this fix, or you're not ready right now, but next year, or if you get a raise, or if you improve your salary, or if you're an entrepreneur, here are the programs for you. Here's the way they impact you. Here's what we look at, etc. That pre-qualification is really, really important.
Is that something that your particular brokerage does? Is that an appointment that someone does prior to going with you on a journey to visit a house? And how do you provide them the help to do that pre-qualification?
So I also have a mortgage license. So I don't utilize it. I do not originate loans. So you're a
one-stop deal.
I am a one-stop deal. The reason I like to call myself a hoarder of licenses and knowledge, I feel like I need to be an expert at something. I'm never an expert. You're always learning. Things are changing. But I need to know enough about something to be able to sit in front of you and empower you. I can't empower that fake it till you make it mentality. I can't empower you unless I know what I'm talking about. And I think, unfortunately, in the real estate and mortgage world, there's a lot of people that are saying things that are not necessarily 100% accurate, and it does scare brand new buyers away.
So the pre-qualification, how does it work with you?
So you come to me, we have a conversation to see if you're even ready for a pre-qualification, right? I need to know all about you. Like, this is a relationship that we're gonna build. This is not I meet you today and tomorrow we're done. You bought, goodbye. I'm in your life forever. After you buy, I'm still in your life forever. And you come to me, we have a conversation. If I think you're ready to be pre-qualified, then, I connect you with my partner lender, and we send you the list of documents and we start that process. You submit documents, you get a number or not, a number or a plan, or a number you qualify for and a plan. And we start looking, right? It's a mutual, it's a conversation.
So you establish a meeting, that you get to know enough about your client to be able to lead them through this journey. You partner them with your lender network, and now they have a list of documents. They have to go search their documents, and they find some of those documents they don't have. What next?
So then there's other documents, right? There's always something, right?
So there's always a way.
There's always a way. The worst comes to worst, the answer is you can't right now. But this is not you can't forever. This is not definitive. You can prepare to become a home buyer. And if you're renting, you should prepare to become a home buyer. I have this conversation a lot with my clients. You are renting and you're paying $3,000 a month. And at the end of the year that you paid $36,000, that was 100% interest, because you're not getting anything back on that money. You threw it out. You built somebody else's equity with it. And if they want to kick you out tomorrow, they have 60-day notice and you're gone, and you have to find, it's not only about the building equity. It's about the stability that buying gives you. No one can kick you out of there if you pay your mortgage every month. And it's about the legacy you leave for the next generations. It's about being able, maybe today and in this lifetime, you can only afford a $200,000 apartment. But your children or your next generations can take that $200,000 apartment, take its equity, live in the apartment, and buy an investment property. And it just escalates from there.
So you're not only, it's important to look at real estate, not as only for you, but also as a bridge for those that you love, that you're trying to make sure are stable. As a father myself, and you as a mother, I know that every day we wake up and our greatest worry is my last breath hits, and then what for my children? And so I think that's a very important point you make, because a lot of people don't look at it that way, that this is a way for you to have a different type of life insurance for your children and your family when you're not here. Now, the three most important documents you think that the people that are listening to us should be gathering and storing and building towards that meeting should be what?
Your tax returns. And if you're a W-2 employee, your W-2s and your pay stubs. Those are extremely important.
In the bank accounts, I know that being a mortgage broker myself and a real estate agent, they do ask for your bank statements, and there's certain transactions that are very unique when they're found in your bank statement. What would you recommend to our listeners to make sure they're strategically building their bank statements to be approved?
So as entrepreneurs, oftentimes we do deposit cash, right? So those cash transactions, sometimes, they want to source the money. They want to make sure that it is income, right? That they know where this income is coming from. In our particular business, everything is in and out through like wires and, electronic transactions. And we do have a lot of electronic transactions now, like through Zelle. So just keeping your records accurate. If you're an entrepreneur, they're going to be looking at your business tax returns and your personal tax returns as a self-employed individual. So just being organized. A lot of people use their business to pay their personal. That's not very recommended, but people do it a lot here in Miami. Just organizing, trying not to go commingle your funds, and trying to have saved money in your account. Right? Oftentimes we live.
How many months do you recommend that people have saved to have a smooth pre-qualification? Is there like a minimum that you recommend? I know for life purposes, you should have 6 months of expenses just in case an emergency hits. But for real estate transactions and pre-qualification, what do you recommend?
So if you're a first-time home buyer and you're able to do an FHA loan, you're going to need 3.5% for your down payment of your pre-qualification amount, and then about 5 to 6% for closing costs. There are first-time home buyer assistance programs that can help you bring down the closing costs. So if you don't have that amount of money saved, let's say you don't have the 9% or 10% saved, it's okay. It's still okay to get pre-qualified because based on your situation, there are programs out there that could help you, right? So I don't want people to feel like, oh my goodness, I don't have 10%, I can't buy,
of course.
Right? You can, but we need to see, right? Every situation, I tell people, your situation is like our fingerprints. Just because your friend, your sister, your brother did it, doesn't mean you're going to be able to do it the same way or that you should be doing it the same way. Like your situation is completely unique and there is a plan for you that it may be different to what your brother, sister, whatever did.
And that is an appetizer of knowledge for our listeners on the importance of being organized and getting ready to buy your home, the value of buying your home. We definitely are going to invite Dr. Elaine Perez back for a real estate series. I think it's important. Our listeners would benefit from that, right? But now let's go back to the entrepreneurship of real estate. So you left the classroom, you left education, short salary, you went to undetermined. How long did it take you to win your first paycheck?
About 4 months. About 4 months, I've been very blessed. I have a big network of people and I don't have the multi-million-dollar clients, right? I have a lot of first-time home buyers. And I think it aligns really well with what I love, which is to empower people, to help people, to teach people. And oftentimes I have to heal real estate transactions that didn't work out, or people who have been told you're never going to buy, or you're not ready now, or you're never ready, right? So I do get a lot of those clients, and I don't take, to me, everything is a challenge, and I need to beat it. Like it's like a video game. Like you tell me you can't do it. What do you mean you can't do it? Of course you can do it. Let's do it.
There's always a way.
Let's do it together. So within 4 months, I had my first transaction. And then I kind of built a pipeline, a small one, because 16 transactions for a real estate agent is not a lot. But I wasn't a full-time real estate agent. I was a full-time mom, you know, and yes, real estate was my full-time job, but I was dedicating much more hours to my kids and their schools and their, you know, their activities and whatever than I really was to real estate, you know. And now I think back and I'm like, I could have done more, but that was what I wanted to do at the moment, you know.
What challenges did you face as an entrepreneur that was working full-time in that role versus before you just had it as a side hustle? What would be those challenges that our listeners could benefit from learning ahead of time through your experience?
Well, now I really had to focus, right, on this. Before, I would get a client, and if I could, I could. And if I couldn't, listen, you know, I can't. Now I had to take everything that came.
That was the only way, right?
That was the only way, right? It didn't matter. I couldn't be selective anymore. Whatever came and however difficult it was and however much time it would take me, I would have to say yes, which is terrible because I still haven't learned to say no to this day. But I had to take it all. And I had to work midnights and I had to work at whatever time to build these searches for my clients. And it was difficult to adjust to not having, it's a lot easier to get up in the morning, go to work, do your job and go home than it is to be an entrepreneur.
So first thing that you confronted was the transition to having a time clock purpose of knowing I get to work, I leave work, I may have some work at home, but I still have my time, to now it's 24/7 all consuming. When it comes, I need to address it because I need to make a paycheck, right? So that's transition number one. What would be transition number two?
Transition number two is it's really easy to get off track. When at least for me, I'm a dreamer, right? So it's really easy for it to be 4 o'clock and I haven't gotten anything done that's been productive. So setting up, holding myself accountable, right? I always had someone to hold me accountable, a boss, a principal, whatever. Now I have to hold myself accountable. And that was really difficult for me.
Self-accountability is really hard because if it's not born in a task list or a goal or a plan, it could end up being a freelance catastrophe, right?
Yes.
So the first one was, you have to understand that you're going to take whatever comes. You're going to work 24/7. You may be on the way to dinner. A client calls you and dinner becomes second to the client because you now are in charge of your own revenues that come to your house, right? Second, you can easily lose the focus, work a lot of hours in a space and not really get anything done. And so you need to be accountable to what you are establishing as your goals. What would be the third?
And the third is that failure really hits you hard when you don't share it with anyone else. I think as an educator, we share failure with other educators. And as an entrepreneur, I take failure, I share it with myself, but then not only does it impact me, but it impacts my spouse and it impacts my kids. It impacts my household. So really, you taking that failure as a learning opportunity, because that's really how we grow. We don't grow if we're always doing great. We grow when we're not doing so well. And then being able to flip it and be like, okay, how can I prevent this and learn from this and get back up and run at it? That was for me.
You just said something that was really interesting, because it's true. As a member of a team, as an employee, whether you're a leader in an organization, you're still an employee, and you have other members that are sharing things with you. You do share success, but you also share failure. You share accountability and responsibility, but your family is never impacted, because if you fail at something at work, unless you're fired, you still take a paycheck home.
That's right.
But as an entrepreneur, now your failures not only impact you emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, it impacts you financially. And your failures become public because now your family knows about them, because you have to tell them, hey, I didn't close this deal. It fell through at closing. What I thought I was going to make, now I'm not making. How are we going to plan? I think that's something that our listeners need to understand, that leaving a salary-based position, taking the leap of faith to go to entrepreneurship is exciting. It's fun. It's enthusiastic. But then the reality hits. And it's that everything is dependent upon you being focused, and every strategy that you institute in the business plan that you're about to execute makes a big difference. Because now failure, you can't point to anybody. You can't even share with anybody. The failure points back to you. And now it is public for those loved ones that you have around you that depend on your success to be able to do that. So I think that particular concept and life lesson is really impactful for our listeners. Thank you so much for sharing that. So now you not only are doing real estate, you're not only the broker of the Elaine Group, you're not only a mom, you're not only a wife, but you decided to open a jewelry store and start a new venture. Tell us about that.
So I went right back. Remember this conversation at the beginning of our conversation where I talked about not wanting to work, with my family. I went right back to, I went home. I went home to the jewelry world. My office is in the same building as our jewelry store. And I received a call about 2.5 years ago from my aunt who said, I have this great opportunity, and it's my dream, and if you do it with me, we can do it together, and we can build, we can open a new store in the front of the Seabold building. And, it's a lifelong dream of mine. And I'll never forget, I was being a mom. I was buying soccer cleats at Dick's, and they were having this great sale, and I was buying cleats for like the soccer team. And I dropped all the boxes, and I'm like, what are you talking about? No, that is the opposite direction of where I'm going. I'm going to freedom. I'm not going back to, retail hours. And she said, no, it'll be different because it'll be new and it'll be modern, and I'll let you lead it, and I'll let you, I said, okay, well, there's going to be, really structured, I'm not ready for that. Monday through Saturday, we're open, every day but Sunday.
What's the name of the jewelry store?
Italian Jewelry Luxury Collection.
Italian Jewelry Luxury Collection. Well, luxury is there, so that means it's expensive.
No, well, it's actually, it's luxury at wholesale prices. So,
Awesome.
you can definitely find some amazing pieces at the best prices. Luxury is just the word, it's the nicer, more luxurious jewelry. And the other store kept the wholesale and also retail, because they do retail too, but that gold and some finished product stayed at the other store.
But think about the excitement. You are in the same building. You have your real estate office on the floor above. You have your jewelry store on the first floor. An elevator makes you switch hats from selling houses to selling jewelry.
Yes.
I mean, it seems like a perfect process. Why did you hesitate?
I think I hesitated because I wasn't where I wanted the real estate business wasn't where I wanted it to be in order for me to be able to dedicate my time or split my time with something else. It did take a very long time to build, and I was able, it was terrible for the jewelry store, but it was great for my real estate business because I was able to continue to build what I wanted to build before having to change hats and get the jewelry store set up.
Oh, but think about that. I think that's really powerful for our listeners because sometimes we look at bad moments or delays or things that don't come out the way we wanted as a negative. And in this case, the delay in the construction or the delay in the permits of the jewelry store was actually a positive for you. And it was an opportunity for you to continue your real estate business and take it to a place where when the transition came, you were able to do it.
Yes. And I always try to find that silver lining. And as entrepreneurs, I do recommend that in hard times, you try to find that silver lining because it's there. It's absolutely there. I got to grow. We do property management as well. So I got to get both of those companies, pretty stable to be able to transition for a few months to get it up and going, right?
So wait, you went from the classroom to principal to saying one day, I resign August 15th, to opening your first company, the real estate company, which is the Elaine Group, to opening a property management company and now a jewelry store. So you went from the classroom to 3 businesses and you're the CEO of all 3. They have some similarities, but very different applications and very different services. And how do you keep all that together?
That's a great I don't know. That's a great question.
Because I have a lot, but at least all of them are in the same type of business. Yours is very different.
Surrounding yourself with people you trust is step 1, right? That's how I keep it together. I keep it together because I have an incredible team. I have an incredible assistant. It's not a big team. It's a small team. I have an incredible assistant. I have an incredible girl at the jewelry store that allows me to be in and out. I am present. I'm there every day. I'm either at the jewelry store, I'm at the real estate office, or I'm showing properties. I'm in and out, but you will find me at the Siebel building every single day, except some Saturdays where my kids have.
And that's really important because some entrepreneurs feel, I open my business, now I'm free. I can go to breakfast, I can go to coffee. And what you're saying is you have to be present. You have to be hands-on. You have to be seen and visible. So the principalship experience of you have to do your walkthroughs every day actually helped you in the business because you're applying that skill somewhere else, right?
Definitely.
But that's important because I think a lot of the young entrepreneurs are after it for this perceived freedom that really hits hard when you notice there is no freedom because time is not yours when you're the CEO or the owner of your business. It actually is everyone you serve. And you also mentioned something that I think is important to highlight. You said, I have the right team. So another tip in your entrepreneurship for our listeners is hire right so you don't have to fire right. In our first episode, we talked to our HR specialist and we were talking about the importance of that, right? That when you hire right, you don't have to fire later. And that hire is so important because it makes your life easier. Would you say that your people have been able to help you access all those businesses?
Absolutely. Without my team, without my assistant, I wouldn't be able to, I would be stuck.
Did you just hire them and leave them or does it take training, support? How did you get them to understand who Elaine is and what Elaine expects?
I am a believer of modeling. Everything I do with you. At this point, if you ask my assistant today, she's already been with me for a few years. She's on her own, poor lady, right? But she already knows what I expect, what I want, what I like. She can make a flyer that looks exactly like mine.
That's the goal, right?
Yes.
That the person gets to know enough about you to be you, right? But I think that for the entrepreneurs, that's important because a lot of our young people will hire somebody. Hey, you're the secretary. Good luck. And then they get upset when the person doesn't do a good job, but they didn't sit down to say, this is how I want you to answer the phone. This is what you should say when someone says this. So it's really important that they understand that training is key to the success of your people. And if your people are not trained, you will fail because you didn't give them the tools to be successful.
I always say that. So training at the beginning, what could take you 3 weeks, if you don't take those 3 weeks, it's going to set you back months and years. And if you keep that every single 5 minutes that you have to dedicate to fixing what that person did is time that's stacking that you could have prevented by doing that training. A lot of times there's no time, right, to do that training at the beginning. So I would take her, hey, let's go. We're going to go show a property. We're going together. I can't teach you to show a property if by just talking to you. Just watch me do it.
But this is amazing because think about it. A lot of people don't realize that everything in life you're going to build upon at some point in your life.
Yes.
And with every decision you make, you're going to go back to the start. Think about when you were a principal and we were all taught that you have to model for your teachers, you have to support your teachers, you have to onboard your teachers, you have to hold them accountable and have performance conversations with them. And how you're saying now, as an owner of a jewelry store, as an owner of a real estate company, you still have to do the same thing, just in a different industry.
Yes.
And, I tell a lot of people as I go through the nation and the world that the job of the principalship really is the job that prepares you for everything. Because as a principal, we do everything. We're business owners, we're educators, we're mentors, we are bosses, we're leaders, we're managers, we do everything. And I'm happy to see that experience really empowered you now to be a successful entrepreneur, an owner of not one business, but 3 and very different ones, right?
Yes.
Let's go to the jewelry store. Tell me a little bit about that experience now. You've been at it now for a little bit. What do you like about it? What are the challenges in the jewelry store and the differences between leading a real estate company and leading a jewelry store?
So I'll start with challenges, right? So I still partner, right, with my aunt. And my aunt and my mom are one person. They've been partners.
Are they passive owners or active owners?
No, active, very active.
Oh, so you have to collaborate at the leadership.
Collaborate-ish.
And knowing you for a long time, and that is not sharing your power is not your forte.
No, I just give it away. I'm just like, you can listen. You tell me what you want me to do, and then I'll go ahead and do it, right? So no, it's been a good experience. It's been a difficult because they do run things. They've been there 45 years.
Plus, you're different generations.
Different generations.
You're a Generation Y, correct?
I don't even know. I think I'm a millennial. I was born in 83.
So different generations have different mindsets for how they lead and do things.
Yes. So it's very different. I have had the power to design. The entire design was done by me and an interior designer. The store is beautiful. It's the most not because it's our store, but it is the most beautiful store in the Seabold. Very modern, very pretty, very classy. The jewelry that was selected, she selected most, I selected some. All of that is great. Now, just the way that it's managed, there's a gap. There's a big gap. And as long as I'm allowed to manage, my employee, and I'm able to lead my employee in the way that I like to lead, I'm fine. It's perfect. I'll take that part. I run the day-to-day operations of the store, and then my mom and my aunt run the accounting part.
Well, it seems like this is important for our listeners to understand, because you were a principal, which means you're in control. You became a real estate agent, which means you're in control. You became a broker, which means you're in control. You became a mortgage broker, you're in control. You open your property management company, you're in control. But now life takes you in a different direction and you open a jewelry store and you're no longer in control. You have shared ownership. There's a big difference in that. What skill sets did you need to take out from inside of you to be able to transition from full ownership, I'm in control, don't have to tell anybody but my pillow what I'm doing, to now I got to count with people to make a decision?
Well, I'm still learning those skills. We opened in November. We fully opened in November, and I'm still learning those skills. And right now, to be honest, I'm building this business, but I get to share it with someone. So I'm going to continue to put 100% into my real estate and maybe only 50% into here because somebody else is putting the other 50%. It's not that I'm treating it less important, right?
But you're treating it the way it should be, right? You're not the full owner. It means you don't have the full responsibility, and you still got to dedicate time to what you've built on your own. I think that's very powerful. You've stated, it seems to me you establish clear job descriptions for each owner. My mom and my aunt are doing the accounting. You're doing the managing of the people that actually are selling. You're educating the people that are selling. And you stay in your lane, and I still go back and take care of my business that I am running every aspect of it. Is that correct?
Yes.
And the second thing that I heard is in one business, you can't share anything because everything is you. And in the other business, you have the opportunity of experiencing the sharing aspect. I bet that brings a lot of appreciation for both aspects. Which one do you prefer and why?
I think I prefer the one where I'm in full control. It's not that other people don't help and that I don't share, right? My husband is a huge part of my success because he does take on things that maybe he wouldn't have to take on if I wasn't doing.
Correct.
Right? Like the kids alone are 3 businesses that require so much time. Mm-hmm. And he's also an agent. So he does share some of those responsibilities, as well as my assistant and other agents that I pull into when I just can't anymore and I don't have enough hands. You know, I do empower other agents to help me with my own listings and things like that. But I do prefer the one where after wanting to collaborate so much, I do prefer the one where I'm in full control because it's only me to blame if things go wrong.
But it's also only you to design. And I think that sometimes
yes,
the architect is so important because if the architectural plan is clear and easy to follow, the GC will be able to build the house. And I think sometimes we underestimate the importance of being the architect and not having multiple people at the design table when it comes to your dreams.
I've mentioned, several times that I would love to find a partner. Right? Someone that is, they don't need to be as experienced as me. They could be more experienced. The level of experience doesn't matter. It's that go-getter attitude and that sharing of a vision and a mission of wanting to empower others, no matter what it takes, to be able to teach them to build generational wealth. That is my mission. Whether I do it for money or I do it for free, I help a lot of people. I give a lot of money back in commissions to help people buy their homes. And
go back to generational wealth, which you said is your mission.
Yes.
Can you elaborate what that means? A lot of people hear those words, don't really understand what that means. What is generational wealth for you?
Generational wealth for me is being able to build something that my kids can then take and continue to build on, whether that be in a business or in real estate. To me, I feel the easiest way to build it is in real estate. Because you have to live somewhere and you can start with your own home, your own apartment, your own space. And then you can build from that and you can leave it to the next generation. I really think that will break that cycle of poverty if we're able to work towards buying an apartment, buying a house, and then leaving it to our kids and so on and so forth. So that's my mission.
I love that mission, generational wealth, because you're not only helping the person in the present, but you're helping them understand that they could be the beginning to a future that is going to be bright financially for their family.
Yes.
How do you educate them to educate the ones coming to not just the moment their last breath hits and they're no longer here physically, the family just says, let me sell everything. So how do you empower them with that education? Because that happens. A lot of people, you can spend a whole life building generational wealth, and the day you go, the next day, the for sale sign is on every lot of the properties you owned.
I am constantly, so I have split visions here, right? I'm constantly empowering my clients to seek legal advice. Go see a probate attorney, a life estate planning attorney. You don't want to get to your last days and you die and your kids have to go through probate and they have to pay a ton of money and they have to pay an attorney. Oh, but I only have one child. It's automatically theirs. No, it's really not, right? You still, I'm an only child. My parents die. I have to go through probate and I have to pay an attorney and I have to pay the court fees and I have to pay all this money to be able to get access to what is mine. So I'm constantly telling my clients, go see an estate planning attorney. What you pay $1,500 for now is going to save you. It's going to save your kids so much money later. Mm-hmm. And for those that have big portfolios and that really want to be in control, because there are those people that really want to be in control of what happens after they die, you have trusts and you have other instruments that you can utilize to control every single aspect of every single property, who lives in it, what they can do with it, even what tree you can put outside. Like you can build that into an instrument that continues after you.
But I think that's really important for our listeners to understand that you may be working hard to build something for your future generations, but if you don't take that step to plan it effectively, and more importantly, your wishes to be memorialized through the estate planning, it could all be different the day you're no longer here. And more importantly, if you're really trying to save them time after you're not here to continue to enjoy what you left them, it's really important that you have that estate planning so that you don't have your children go through the trouble of having to fight for what was theirs to begin with. I think it's really important that you've shared that with our team. And, you know, as we reach the end of our podcast today, and definitely not the last one you'll be part of, because I think that the information that you have is going to empower the community for that mission you have, which is to build generational wealth. But I think right now, in a moment in time in which real estate acquisition is so important for your space, for that first home, you could definitely help a lot of people reach that goal. If you were to leave our listeners, which as we started the podcast was saying, you have a journey. The journey that you had is, I was in a salary-based position. I was not happy. I knew I needed more. I was missing out on something so important to me, which was to be a mom. And I took the leap of faith. I opened my first business on my 401k to be my salary and didn't get my first check until 4 months after. My failures now became mine. I couldn't even share them with anyone, and it impacted the bread and butter that I took to my house every day. Now I have 3 businesses. I am free. I have a mission. I have a calling that's worldwide. If you had to leave our listeners with what they should take into account to understand when is it the right opportunity that they should seize?
I think if you think about it, it's never the right time.
So your impulsive is important.
Your impulsive is important. In this case, it was important. It's never going to be the right time, but it's never too late. And you can always go back to what you were doing. You don't don't feel like I never felt. I just renewed my teaching license, and I always think if something happens and everything implodes, I can go back to a school. I still remain current. It's never too late. Don't be afraid of that bi-weekly salary. Mm-hmm. If you need to prepare, like don't be like me where I just blew it up and had no plan, right? If you need to prepare for it. You know, take the rest of the year to save a little bit, get ready, and then take the leap of faith. But take the leap of faith. Don't be in a position or in a place where you're not happy. The skills that you've learned throughout your life and throughout your career, you can apply anywhere, especially to your own business. And that's what I learned through this process.
And so to our listeners, with regards to making that decision is don't think it too much. If you feel it, use that gut feeling to inspire you and make sure that you are planning to be able to determine when is it the right date to say, a beginning is about to start for me and something is going to end. And remember that with every ending, a new beginning always starts for you. With regards to real estate, what would you like to end our listeners with around real estate and what they should be doing given the market today?
Don't be afraid of the market. It's always a good time to buy, not always a good time to sell, but it's definitely always a good time to buy, especially if you're renting and you're building someone else's equity. Take that money and build it for yourself.
So take the money you're using for rentals and build it for yourself. And always remember that despite what we're hearing, it's not a right time to buy. Interests are high. our real estate experts are saying it's always the right time to buy. It may not always be a right time to sell, but always the right time to buy, because you don't want to throw away money by staying in a rental property. And last but not least, for you, you've had a lot of experiences in life, and you've confronted challenges, changes, revolutions, identity crashes, identity evolution. What would be the life lesson you feel that you would want to share with the listeners has been the most impactful for you?
Oftentimes, you look at the world around you and you may feel like, people don't believe in you, or a failure has caused maybe people to not believe in the way they believed in you. You know what you're capable of. And believing in yourself is step one to being able to be successful.
So don't let anyone tell you you can't. Let that can't be the energy that motivates you to become. I love it.
I love it.
I love the way it was stated. And that tells you that at any given time, a failure could have people judge you negatively. And it could also lead to people losing trust in your ability. But the failure is just another lesson in your life towards you becoming something great. I also want our listeners to understand that it's never too late to start something new. And it's never too late to go after your dreams. You should never settle for a default package, because a default package could be just a waste of life. Remember, at one point, you're going to have to tell what you did with your life, and your choice is what you're going to tell in that story. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been my true privilege to host this podcast today. I want to thank you, Elaine, on behalf of Leeward Jeffrey, for coming and sharing this wonderful insight, this motivational information that people can take, they can learn from, and they can see that it is possible. And so for our listeners, I want to thank you for joining us. And always remember, it's never too late to start something new. Today, you learned that when you want to do something, think it, analyze it, not too much, just the right amount, and make sure you take the leap of faith, even if you don't see the whole staircase. Because in that process, you'll learn, you'll fail, you'll succeed, and you'll have a lot of growth in your life. And always remember, you could go from a salary-based employee to the owner of 3 businesses, like Elaine has shared with us today. And not only one business, but different types of businesses to be able to lead. So thank you so much. And more importantly, subscribe, follow, because remember that in our YouTube channel, we're empowering you one life at a time to be the change in the world. Stay inspired.